Let's start with today's session. Today's session is all about incremental refresh. Before starting with this, let me just give you a quick clarification on what we have done with respect to refresh. So let's imagine. So generally, what we do with respect to refresh is in this Power BI architecture, if there is a data source here, this is a data source. Here I have been creating a data set, then we'll publish it to the Power BI service. But generally what will happen if this data source is getting updated, if some new data comes into this data source, the new data needs to be transferred to the data set. This data set should be updated with the new data set, with the new information or with the new data in the source. So generally we there are two types of refresh. One we can do at the dataset level. We can do uh, in the Power BI desktop, or the other way is in the Power BI service there is an option called as refresh or schedule refresh. So here we have got, for example, this is a report here. This sales report is there, and we have got a data set. So we have got here some options for this particular sales report. We have got this data set. So this data set, what we are going to do, if there are some changes in the data source of this data set, the data source for this data set is retail AB SQL server. SQL server is a data source for this. If some new information is added, if some new rows are added, if some new data is added in the data source of this, that is in the SQL server, in the retail AB database, if some new information is added daily, then we want those new information to be added into this data set, and eventually to the report we wanted. So for that we are having the functionality called as refresh now. If I refresh now, I'll be requiring a gateway for that, and gateway will, as I already said, that gateway is used as a bridge between the on-premise data and the cloud services. So I'll just click on this refresh, and this data set would be refreshed. Or there is another option, we can go on for the schedule refresh. We can go on for the schedule refresh also. In the settings we have got this functionality here, refresh. So here we can opt for this refresh schedule. Here we can refresh, we can schedule the refresh. We can schedule the refresh weekly, daily. We can also provide some timings for that, and those sort of activities can be done. But the difference is, whenever I go on with refresh, with refresh or schedule refresh here, so what is exactly happening is, in the data, whenever I go on with the refresh, like let's imagine we have got some, let's imagine that we have got some data here in the data source, and that 10 million rows are there. 10 millions 10 million sales transactions are here. For example, 10 million transactions are here. And if in that 10 million transaction, if today 1 million transaction is added to this, so that 1 million transaction needs to be reflected in the data set. So 11 million transactions should be here finally in the data set. But what will happen if we refresh? It will, when we refresh the data set, all this 10 million get truncated. It get truncated, and it will get truncated. All this 10 million which is available here in the earlier, that 10 million transaction would get truncated, and it would be replaced with the new transaction, with the 11 million transaction. It would be replaced. That's what the thing, that's what's the default process for the refresh or schedule refresh. So in this process, what will happen, there would be a lot of wastage of time here. Refresh would take too long to refresh. So it is not recommended if more data is there in this. If like 20 years of data is there into this, and if I want only 1 year data to be added into this recently, because the 1 year data has got recently added here, so it is not recommended to go on with the refresh or schedule refresh if we only want one year of refresh data to be refreshed here. Recent data, if we want 1 year recent data, so in this what we can do is we can go on with the incremental refresh. Incremental refresh. So what does incremental refresh does is, let's see in this document. So this is purely a document for incremental refresh. So what is the usual procedure is full refresh or full load. So whenever we go on with refresh or schedule refresh in the Power BI service, in full refresh, full load, all the tables data in the data set will get truncated. It will get deleted first, and then it will be reloaded again as per the refresh, as per the refresh need. Whether it would be 5 months data, recent 5 months data, or recent 1 year data. If that one is new data into this, the old data would get truncated and the new data would be added on top of it. So this truncation would take time, and again the reloading of this table, this updated information would take time. So the default configuration for the Power BI dataset is wipe out or truncate the entire data in the all the tables and reload it again. So truncating the old data and reloading it again, it would take time. So if data set is small or refresh process is not taking a longer time, then full load is not a problem at all. So if data set is, as I already explained, if the data set is small or the refresh process is not taking a longer time, then the full load is not a problem at all. But on the other side, when either the data set is big or the refresh process of the dataset takes longer time, then it's better to configure the incremental refresh. It's better to configure the incremental refresh. So let me tell you something regarding incremental refresh, like what exactly happens in incremental refresh or incremental load. See, with respect to interview perspective, these two names are there for incremental refresh. So don't be confused. Whenever an interviewer asks regarding the incremental refresh or incremental load, they are just talking about the incremental refresh only. So here what will happen? In the dataset, rather than refreshing the entire data in the tables, you can set up only add the rows that are new since the last time you refresh the data. So when you have refreshed the data last time, after that whatever rows are added to the data source, we are getting to provision to get that data itself on top of the old data. So for example, you may have a table that is updated daily with the new sales transaction. Rather than rebuilding the entire refresh each day, you can just add the new transactions that occurred that day. We are having that provision in incremental refresh. So incremental refresh enables a very large data sets in the Power BI with the following. So will not go that much depth onto this. So there are some benefits of it. Refreshes will be faster if we go on with the incremental refresh rather than going on with the full refresh or full load. So here, now now we'll see how to go on with setting up this incremental refresh. So what will happen in the incremental refresh is, what will happen in the incremental refresh? So data source, let's imagine data source contains 20 years of data. 20 years of data. So what will happen in the in in the full load process or full refresh process? What will happen if the data source contains a 20 years data, and if an and if the data is been added for the last 5 days or 2 days, some data is added to that 20 years data. In the full load process, what will happen in the at the time of refresh, it will truncate all this 20 years data. It will truncate all this 20 years data, and it will again reload this 20 years data plus this 2 years and plus this 5 days data or a recent 2 days data it will add. So in this process, what will happen? The 20 years data is pretty much bigger. The load is pretty much bigger. So it takes around like 20 minutes of time. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes of time. It depends on the data. For I'm just talking about the refresh time. So this refresh time, instead of taking that much, instead of wasting that much time in truncating and reloading, we can go on with the incremental refresh. So how will this incremental refresh works is, the data source contains 20 years data. So for the first time, when you are bringing the data from the data source, you can bring all the 20 years data and you can load it. This is for the first time it will happen. But from the second time when you are refreshing it, you can incrementally do it. Only last 5 days or 2 days data you can incrementally configure it. So what will happen, whenever the first time refresh would happen, it will the data from the you can bring all the 20 years data, it will bring all the 20 years data and it can load it. But from the second day, from the second time when you are refreshing it, you can incrementally do it. Only last 5 days or 2 days data you can incrementally configure it. So for the second time when you refresh it, it will not truncate this data, it will not reload this data. So from the time of the first refresh, whatever the new data you got it here, only that new data will bring it and it will add it here. So this is what the incremental configuration will do. So for doing that, let's start. Let me tell you how to implement the incremental refresh. Let's just open the Power BI desktop file. We'll just open the Power BI desktop file. A fresh Power BI desktop file will open. Let me just go to the Power Query. How we go to the Power Query is by clicking onto this home transform data. In the transform data, we'll go. We'll take it as a new source. We are just planning to take a SQL Server as a source. So SQL Server, let me just take it. Let me just give it some server details. So server details, I have got it here. So server details, I'll just include the server details. Let me just go it again. So here we are having Adventure Works DW 2029. So this is a database we are having. So in this database, we'll take some kind of tables here. We'll take dim customer table. We'll take dim date table. We'll take dim product. We'll also take fact internet sales. Fact internet sales. And we'll press OK. This is the table which we have taken right now. These are the tables. We'll close and apply. These are like very much structured and filtered data. We'll close and apply. Yeah. What I'll do is, I'll save this data set. As incremental. Incremental refresh data set. Refresh data set 8 p.m. Jan 2025. We're just saving it, this data set, and we'll just publish it. We'll just save it. We'll publish it. We'll publish it to the workspace. Let's take this workspace as RLS 8 p.m. January. We'll just publish it here. Okay. So we have got this. So it will be published here. It will be published in this RLS. This is incremental refresh. Okay. Now what will happen? This is a data set which I have got. Okay. If if you refresh now means it will truncate and reload. If you refresh now this data set means it will truncate and reload around like 30 to 40 minutes to refresh it will take. If we are just sticking to the example of 20 years data, it might take around 30 to 40 minutes to refresh. So what we need to do is, for in order to refresh it, we'll just check the gateway. So for checking the gateway connections and all, we'll go to this settings here at the top. Here manage connections and gateways would be there. We'll check on-premise data gateway, it is available. This is a on-premise data gateway. And for this specific data source, for this specific database, there should be some kind of connection available here. Currently, I can't see any connection available. So let's build the connection. Oh, I think here the connection is available. Adventure Works Data Warehouse 2029. So the connection is already done. We have configured it. I have already demonstrated how to configure it in the gateway session. In the gateway session, I have already done that. So we have done it. So now what is the step is, we can go to the workspace. We'll go to this RLS 8 p.m. Here into this data set. What is the last step we do is, we go to the settings. We go to the gateway and cloud connections. We map to that particular connection. This is a connection which we have got there. We'll map to this. I'll click on apply. So I have mapped it. Why I am doing this? In order to refresh this data set, I am doing this. So we'll go here in the incremental data refresh. Now the timing is, see, this is a timing right now. So what we can do is, we can refresh this. Now it's 5:26. Let me refresh it. So we are good to refresh now. I'll not refresh now. We'll see. Now what we have to do is, we need to configure some kind of incremental refresh at the dataset level. So what we'll do is, so here we have got this dataset. Here what we'll do is, we'll go to model view. I'll just explain you some things here. So some we have got some dimension columns here. These are the dimension columns. I have already explained you the dimension and fact column. These are the three dimension columns, and we have got a fact column here. So these are the four. These are the dimension columns here. So generally dimension columns will not have millions of data. Generally these dimension columns will not have that millions of data. They will always have less data. The fact table which is there, it may have 50 millions of data or 100 millions of record. You will have in fact more records also in the fact table. So generally dimension tables don't have that much records, but as compared to dimension tables, fact table will have more records. So dimension tables truncating and reloading will not take much time. If we go on with truncating and reloading of the data in the dimension tables, it will not take that much time. So we need to only configure for this fact table. We need to only configure the incremental refresh for this fact table. So what are the steps? I'll just tell you some of the steps here. In the document, if you see, we have got some steps. So there are some steps is, firstly we need to make some kind of parameters, range start and range end parameters. So while making the parameters, you should be pretty much focused onto this range start and range ends, and that we should use this kind of, because these are case sensitive. The names are case sensitive here. We need to use only these names which are available here. So we need to firstly create a parameters. Then we will be. Then the next step is, we need to define the refresh policy. We need to apply the filters to those parameters. The date filters will apply to those parameters. And then the last step is, we need to define the refresh policy. We need to define the refresh policy. So let's see how we can do it. I have already I've already explained you what are the three steps: creating range start and range end parameters. After that, applying the filters. Then we should define the and refresh incremental refresh policy. So these are the incremental refresh. So let's do it, guys. So let's go to Power Query. Let's go to Power Query first. In the Power Query, I'll go to transform data. So here we'll go to home. We have got something like that, manage parameters here, manage parameters here. So in the manage parameters, let me just take a new parameter here. We'll take this parameter, we'll name it as range start first. Range start. Here I'll take type as date and time. Suggested values, any value would be okay. We'll give some date here. We'll give some date. So currently I'll give a date as 1st of January, 1st January, MMDDYY will take it as a date here. So here 2014. Let me take this date. Let me just give it a time. So we have given this time. We'll just make this parameter here. So I made the one parameter. Again, another parameter we need to make, that is range end parameter I need to make. Here again we'll go to this manage parameters. I'll click on this new parameter again. So here we'll give it as a name range end. Range end. Here the process is pretty much similar to the range start. Here I'll give the date. I'll give some date here. I'll give around. I'll give some date. I'll give the date as 2014. 2014 12 00 AM. So I'll give this date. Let me just change that date to 2nd of 12. I'll give 12 days. So we have given this date. We have given this date now for the range end. So what is the difference between this range start and range end is? Which one is the first date? We'll just go to edit parameters. So I'll check. These are the dates which I have given. So MMDDYY I have given is, this is MMDDYY format. First month. So February, 1 month I'll give. 12 days. 12 days I'll give for this. So if I want the data to be reflected for 12 days, 12 days is the difference for this. So I'll just click on this. So what is the next step now? 12 days difference it is there. We have created the range start, range end. Now using those parameters you need to apply the filters. Using those parameters you need to apply the filters. Let's go to this fact internet sales. Fact internet sales, because here only we need to apply the incremental refresh. We'll go to the order date column because we have got the date column here. We have got the date column. So in the order date we'll go. Yeah, here it is order date. Here I'll apply the filters. Here date time filters would be there. Into this date time filters, we have to select a custom filter now. Custom filter. We'll select the custom filters into this. Here the first option would be we need to give some filter here. Is after or equal to. Is after or equal to we'll take. Is after or equal to. We'll give here parameter. We'll give a parameter. We'll take it as range start. Directly it will take range start. The second option is we'll take it is before. Is before. Here again we'll take the parameter. Parameter range end we'll take this time. See what I have done is I have filtered the data. Is after or equal to that date, the first date, range start date, and is before the range end date. This is a filter which I have applied. This is a procedure. Firstly we'll create a parameter. Then parameter is something like that. We are just giving it as a date. And for that particular date, we'll just apply some filters to that. Now the filters are done. Now what is the next step is, now it will load only the 12 days data. If you see here, it has loaded only the 12 days data. Only the 12 days data it will load. Now, so when you publish this data set, first time when you refresh it, I'll just close and apply. So when you publish this data set, first time when you refresh it, how many years data I need to bring in? From second time you are refreshing it, how many days? How many days data incrementally you need to bring in? So as per that requirements that you need to define for which table you need to define incremental refresh. Only fact internet sales table I'll be defining the incremental refresh. Now we'll go to this fact internet sales here. We'll go to this three dots. Here we'll click on incremental refresh. Here we'll click on incremental refresh in order to schedule this, in order to implement this incremental refresh. So now what is the table? Fact internet sales we need to apply. Here I'll click on this. We have got here the archiving data starting and incremental refresh data starting. So these are the two options we'll get. So here, as I have given you the example for 20 years, let's do it at 20 years here. 20 years data before the refresh date. What was the data before the refresh date? 20 years data was there. Now how many days we want? So let's take it as 3 year. Let's take it as last 3 days data we want. Last 3 days data. So it will just take the timing of that from today's date. From the date it has taken the timing. See, from today's date, last 3 days it has taken till 7, and before 7, 20 years date time it is taking here. 20 years before the date it is taking it here. So we are having this option. What we can do is, see, 20 years before refresh date it has archived, we have taken. 3 days before refresh date it will consider for incremental refresh. Here you can see it easily. Here you can see it easily. Now what I'll do is, and we have got some settings here. We have got some settings here. So the first setting is something like that: direct query, get the latest data, get the latest data in real time with direct query premium only. This setting enables fetching the latest changes from the selected table at the data source beyond incremental refresh period by using a direct query. So all the rows with date and time later than the incremental refresh period are included in a direct query partition and fetched from the data source with every model query. So this is for that purpose. Currently we don't want that. There is another option called as only refresh complete days. Only refresh complete days. So the only refresh complete days, this setting ensures all rows for the entire day are included in the refresh operations. And the last and very efficient option is detect data changes. Detect data changes. So what will happen is, if we are having a 20 years data, and if only last 5 days data it has been added to the data source, so what it will do is, it will, if I click on this, it will detect that only 3 days data it is there, and it will only bring in that 3 days data. So we can configure in that way also. So these are the optional settings. We don't have to opt it. It is not mandatory for a developer to opt it. These are just optional settings. So I'll just click on apply here. So incremental refresh, it has applied now. I'll just again publish it. I'll just again publish it to the particular workspace. I'll just save this. We'll publish it. We have already done with the gateway connections. We have already set up the connections for the gateway. Yeah, we'll replace this. So generally what will happen? For the first time, it will take more time, because we have already said that for the first time it will it will truncate, it will load the data for 20 years of data, but for the second time it will append the 3 days data and display. It will append the three append means it will add those 3 rows, for the rows which are added for the last 3 days in the data source. Only that rows would be appended to this main table, and it will display. So this is how, see, it is published now. So we can go on with the refresh now. So the refresh is occurring here. So it is allowing me to refresh because gateway is set up properly and the connections are also set up properly. So it is just refreshing it. I said that it will take more time because the data is there. It's taking more time, but it will refresh. So this hovering thing is there. It is sorry, this browsing, yeah, it has refreshed now. 540 it has refreshed now. So we can see in this way we can implement the incremental refresh. So I conclude the today's session. These are the steps which we have seen. This is how the incremental refresh can be implemented. Thank you everyone.